All right, so we just finished doing the kinetic molecular theory unit, and so we're gonna move on to atomic. Oh my goodness, atomic theory. There we go, got it. I am not gonna stop recording. All right, so with that being said, what will happen is we're gonna be taking a look at atoms. We're gonna be taking a look at elements and compounds. We're also going to be looking at the periodic table of the elements for those who've been asking earlier in the year. So we're going to be taking a look at that in this unit as well. So today, let's get started. There's a few things for you to keep in mind. Number one, I'm going to have this Google Slides presentation in our lesson thing for you to be able to, actually no, I think I'll keep it as a separate document. And I'll just bump it up to each week that you're still going to be on the atomic theory. And so with that being said, you can just refer to it whenever you need to. What will happen is you're also going to have this, and remember what I expect you to do. Please go to File, make a copy. When it comes up with make a copy, have it where you put your name first, and then it should show up where it's your name first, then the name of the document. And something to keep in mind is that you will be using this document for the next several lessons. So please keep that in mind. I am not going to be giving you a new document each time because I want you to have one place to put all of your answers. With that being said, this is a pretty decent sized document, and honestly, I don't think we're going to have time to go through all of it. So there will probably be some times where I'm going to cut out questions or sections of this document. So just keep that in mind. But if you're having a hard time being able to find your document, and I know I've been talking to a few students who have had difficulties with that, just have it where you go to Google, if you're not already going to be on there, and then have it where you go to this, I think it's called a waffle or wiffle or something like that. You're going to click this, then click on Docs, and then once you clicked on Docs, you'll have it where you're going to do a search. And you could do a search for, let's say, Unit 6 Student, and see what comes up. And so then you should have it where you have your notes showing up. And so then you'll click on that, and that will take you to where you need to go. So that's what you're going to be using for the next little while. Keep that in mind. Also, please keep in mind, you do not need to share it with me unless I've asked you to. So the homework checks are going to take place with the Google Forms. That's always at the last page of the lesson. So this document right here does not need to be handed in to me. Just keep that in mind, please, and thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a look at the Google Slides presentation. So first of all, and unfortunately, we have to do a little bit of jumping back and forth between the two because I realized the slideshow wasn't completely complete. So with that being said, we obviously just finished looking at matter and the different states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. And now what we're going to do is find out what makes up this matter, which is going to be different one or more chemical elements, but all of these elements, they are made of atoms. And so that's what we're going to be getting a chance to take a look at. So first of all, we have a bunch of early Greek philosophers that they proposed the idea that all matter is going to be made up of incredibly small but discrete or individual separate units, like the bricks in a wall. And then, we'll see if I pronounce this correct, Democritus, he was actually the first one to call these units atomos. And so eventually that turned into atoms that we use today. And that means atomos is a Greek phrase which means not cut, or that which is indivisible. Now, what happened is, let me just go here quickly. Yes. So first of all, we're going to put that down there. So atomos, that means indivisible. So that means you can't divide it any further, or uncuttable. You can't be cut any further. And now, just a heads up here. Now, it's not in the slideshow, but I'm going to just fill it in here. So we also have someone else. We have Aristotle, who believed that matter was composed of properties. So he's kind of approaching it from a different angle. And so with it being composed of properties, he felt like those properties, and gotta love this word that's been going on lately, it was moist. He felt like that was one of the properties, that it was dry, hot, or cold. That one of those properties would be able to describe matter. And then with that being the case, so these are the properties, and then what would happen is it was contained in various proportions by 4 major elements, and that's where we have our water, we have our air, I keep pushing the wrong button, we have fire, and we have earth. So that was Aristotle's perspective. And if you read down here, and as you can see how he made it so that it all related to each other as far as moist, cold, dry, hot, and how that fit in there with the different elements. So with Aristotle, though, Democritus, he had it where he looked at that and was like, no, that doesn't sound right. Because Aristotle, his perspective was based more in philosophy. And that means that it was just more of a philosophical idea, and not really being intended to be experimented upon. And so what happened is Democritus had a different idea. And at that time, though, unfortunately, the experimental results were very inconsistent. And so that's why Aristotle felt like you had to view matter through a philosophical lens, because you couldn't experiment with it to get a real, true, hands-on knowledge of it. And so that's why a lot of people did not pay attention to Democritus. He was way ahead of his time, and Aristotle was the one who they actually thought was correct, and that his viewpoint was valid, whereas they thought Democritus was just, because you couldn't experiment on it, that it was, not something to be paid attention to. However, we have John Dalton. So now we're going back to this here, and he had it where he took that theory that Democritus came up with, and he had it where he actually introduced 5 claims or postulates about elements that are still largely accepted as the truth today. And so that was that each element consists of indivisible, minute particles called atoms. And then we have all atoms of a given element are identical. Atoms of different elements have different masses. Atoms can neither be created nor destroyed during chemical reactions, as well as atoms chemically combine in fixed ratios to form compounds. Again, we're going to be going through this. We're actually going to go through each part of the atomic theory through the next few lessons here. And I'm going to actually go back here. So we're going to actually start writing that down. So each element consists of indivisible, minute particles called atoms. And we also have, oh, it doesn't autocorrect that, all atoms of the same element are identical. We also have atoms of different elements have different masses and properties. And then we have atoms cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. Last one we have is atoms chemically combine in fixed ratios to form compounds. All right, so this is going to be the premise of the basic atomic theory or atomic theory. So now, keeping in mind though that atoms are so small that it's really only very recently that we've been able to even start looking at them, because even the strongest microscope that existed back then was not strong enough to be able to properly look at an atom. And so it's only recently, with bigger and better technology, as well as having more powerful, or shall I say, the ability to zoom in on things, to magnify things, that has only improved enough for us to be able to look at the atom just, again, more recently. So now there are some videos that you can take a look at here. So this one here This one is just how small is an atom. That's a good little review here. And then I do have one other one as well that I have included that you can take a look at. And so I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to come back for part 2 where we're going to take a look at the parts of an atom.